GEOshow is now live. Explorers, are you ready?
Yeah!
Welcome all explorers near and far, in the present or in the future. If you're watching this recording, you are now watching the Geo Show, and today's title is Mexican Culture, a look at Central Mexico. Today's all-free virtual field trip is brought to you by flatclass.club. Teachers, are you looking for new and innovative ways to tear down your classroom walls and bring the world into your classroom? Well, check out the Flat Class podcast over at flatclass.club. Today is an interactive show. That means if you are not one of our on-camera guests, you can send in all your questions and comments using the Zoom Q&A feature. So look in the top left or bottom of your Zoom window. You should be something that says Q&A. You can type in your questions there. You can also use Twitter if you like to roam around your classroom with your device in your hand. Just make sure you use the hashtag GeoShow. Again, hashtag GeoShow. Once again, we are playing a Kahoot game during today's show with survey questions and choose your own adventure questions and a quiz worth points. Pay attention, explorers, because if you win today's Geo quiz, you will win a postcard from me, your host, GeoB, from the Learn Around the World studio. Again, that ID is 7090676. All right, well, GeoShow is a geography-based show. That means location matters, explorers. So let's find out, where are we going on our virtual field trip today? Well, I hope you all brought your virtual passports if you live outside of Mexico, because we're going to Mexico for today's virtual field trip. And specifically, we're going to visit two places in central Mexico. First, we're going to visit Mexico City. So Mexico City is a very large city. It's bigger than New York City, and it is about 7,000 feet in elevation. We'll also visit Oaxaca. Oaxaca is in south central Mexico, and it's a state and a city, but we visited the city in Oaxaca. And those are our locations for today's show. So again, if you like a traditional map, again, I just want to point out, everyone, look how massively big, look how big Mexico is. It's a very large country. So I want to go ahead and tell everyone this today. Everything that you see on the Geo Show today came from one of these two locations, either Oaxaca or Mexico City. So the culture may be different in northern Mexico or over here in the Yucatan Peninsula. Mexico is a very large country. It's like saying if we only visit New York and Los Angeles, that represents the entire U.S. culture, which it does not. I am personally from North Carolina, and New York nor Los Angeles represents North Carolina. So keep that in mind from the things you see today as far as food and other things, that it may be different in other places around Mexico. All right, so before we get into it, we're going to introduce our on-camera classroom today. First, we only have one classroom currently here with us on camera. So Mrs. Spadoni's third graders from Brookfield, Wisconsin in the USA. Welcome to the show, guys. All right, and do you have a fun fact about Mexico today? Does anyone have a fun fact to share?
Today, 92.70% people of Mexico speak Spanish.
Right, so the main language in Mexico is Spanish. And if you're wondering, it was brought by the Spanish. So before the 1500s, so when the Spanish came around 1517 or so, that's when they brought the Spanish language. So before that, they spoke different languages, like much of native USA. So the Native Americans that lived in the USA, many of them spoke different languages. And today, English is spoken because the English settled into what is today the United States of America. Same thing with Mexico, which for a long time was called New Spain before they got their independence. So for a long, long time, it was known as New Spain. So again, I will repost that Kahoots code in your chat box for those of you asking. And there we go. All righty. So we're going to start off today's virtual field trip with talking about one of those native cultures that was in central Mexico before the Spanish came. So 500 years ago, before the Spanish came, Mexico City was where a civilization known as the Aztec people lived. Okay, what were they called? Aztec. So there were many people. It's a little bit different than the rest of places like in the United States, for example. These were in central Mexico. We call this area Mesoamerica. So it was the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Zapotecs, very large civilizations, very large cities, unlike their neighbors to the north. And so they have very big cities, and we are going to visit one of the temples of the Aztec in Mexico City. So let's do that now, and we're going to head over into our virtual tour of the Great Temple. So if we look at Mexico City today, it looks like any other city on a Google map. Lots of roads and highways, and you see park areas and so forth. But it looked much different 500 years ago before the Spanish came. If this is a painting of what it was once like, but if you notice all this blue stuff, a lot more blue stuff than what you just saw on that Google map, that's because where current day Mexico City is located used to be a lake. And right in the center of the lake was an island, and that was the capital city of the Aztec people. It was called Tenochtitlan. So if I point to it on the right painting over here, and Tenochtitlan, again, was the capital city of the Aztec people. And in the middle of Tenochtitlan was their religious area, their ceremonial area, and the largest of their pyramids was called the Great Temple. And this is where they would perform their religious ceremonies. And let's zoom in to what it looks like today. Well, it looks much different today than the model I just showed you, because when the Spanish got here and they conquered the Aztec, they knocked down all their buildings and they built Mexico City right on top of it. So right here is one of the buildings they built, which is a cathedral. So it's called the Metropolitan Cathedral. And right beside the Metropolitan Cathedral is what's left of the Great Temple. So as we see right here, we're going to zoom in. You may look at it and say, it just looks like a construction site. Well, at one time, this was a massive, massive pyramid that was right here. But again, the Spanish knocked it down and they built on top of it. And many people forgot that it was here. It wasn't until much, much later that we're going to see this in just a second, but workers were building or laying in a water line right through here, and they rediscovered this old pyramid, the Great Temple. And today, it's an archaeological site, so many artifacts have been pulled out. And in fact, right behind the site over here, this is a big old museum that much of what was found here is housed in that museum today that you can go to in Mexico City. All right, so we're going to go down onto the ground and kind of check it out. But first, let's look at the Metropolitan Cathedral and what that looks like. All right, so this is that cathedral that I circled right out front, and there's two sections of it. This is the newer section, and this is the older section of the cathedral. Now, for our purposes, talking about old Aztec buildings, that old part is important because the cathedral was built on top of some of these pyramids, and because of that, it's shifted under the cathedral over the years. And this is right where this red circle is where the cathedral sits today. And that has an effect on the cathedral today. So let's look. This is the old part of the cathedral. And when we look at the foundation, we're going to pan across from left to right. Everyone look at the foundation. Does anyone notice anything weird about that foundation? Does anyone notice anything weird over in Wisconsin? It's uneven, right? So it's getting smaller. So if I draw lines, it's easier to see. So it's actually sinking. It's sinking down to the right. That's because a lot of the rubble of the pyramids under it started the shift from the weight, and the entire cathedral is sinking down to the right. Now, if we go inside the cathedral, you can see something else kind of unique. And so I'm gonna draw a line here and right down the center of this aisleway, and that'll help you keep your eye on this line. Now, as we pan up, everything should be in the middle here. So we have an altar, a cross up there on the wall, everything's centered except one thing. Something is off-center. Does anyone see what's off-center?
The chandelier.
The chandelier. Why do you think it's off-center?
Because it's leaning to the right.
Right, the entire building is falling over to the right, and because the chandelier is hanging from the top of the building as we go up, you see the chain, and it's hanging from the center of the ceiling. It's swinging like a pendulum, swinging like a pendulum. So it's like if you held a yo-yo in your hand and you tilted your body over to the left, well, the yo-yo is still going to follow or fall in the same place. So as the building moves, the chandelier is staying centered, is hanging down straight. It's just that the rest of the building is not straight. That's kind of wild, don't you think? Okay, so how big was that Great Temple? The Great Temple was about 148 feet tall. So that is today 197 feet tall is the top of those towers of the cathedral. So that old part that we just looked at, it would have been higher than that part. All right, so again, and let's look, what did that Great Temple look like? If we look at it up close, so historians have built models what it would have looked like, and it had two main staircases, and it was actually many pyramids in one. That's because as time went by, the Aztec became more powerful. They had a smaller pyramid to start with, and they kept making it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So when the Spanish knocked it down, and what we have left today, so if we cut a line right straight through the middle of it, all we can see today are these individual layers of the old stairs from the first pyramid, the second pyramid, the third pyramid, and so forth, built right on top of each other. All right, so let's check it out. So now we're going to do our tour. So this is from the top of a building right nearby. And again, those layers that I was just telling you about. So this is that newest layer, the second oldest layer, the third, fourth, and so forth, right into the original pyramid right in the middle. So we're going to come down and walk down into the site this way. All right, so we're going to go down on the ground and check it out. Let's explore. All right, so when we get down onto the main site, a couple of things that's really interesting is one is this giant plant here. If you don't know what this is, do we have any guesses? Okay, agave, it is. It's agave, whoever said that. So it's agave, or it looks like aloe. Agave gets bigger, but these are giant. This is like 6 foot tall. I don't know if you guys can tell. I wish I could get down there and stand beside it for you. But as we walk up closer, you'll see another plant, and to our left. And does everyone recognize this one? What is this to the left? Cacti. So what can you tell me about the climate around Mexico City if we see agave and cacti? Right, very hot, right? Hot and dry. And just so you, this is the cathedral that we were just inside with the chandelier hanging down. So that'll let you know where we're at right now. And so we're going to walk down further into right in front of the last steps of the temple. And before we walk deeper in, we can't get over there right beside it, but right at the front of the temple, these are two small statues of frogs. Frogs were important to the Aztecs because we just saw cacti and agave, so we know it's dry. We know it's hot and dry in this part of the world. But so rain was important. And when the frogs would come out, that was a sign that rain was coming. So frogs were very important to the Aztec people. You'll also see lots of serpent heads. As we pan around, we'll get a closer look at one of these serpents. That's just another name for a snake. So there we go. There's his head. You'll notice it's got some kind of reddish tint to it. That's because the Aztecs used lots of deep red paint. Maybe we'll see that a little bit later in the show where that red comes from. But this is about 20 feet long, this serpent. And the rocks that you can see, the type of rock, that is volcanic rock brought in from the surrounding area. So again, we're at 7,000 feet in elevation, so a very, very high city. And surrounding, so we're in a flat valley, and surrounding the valley around Mexico City is large mountains. So, so there are volcanoes around. So we're going to walk deeper into the temple. So now we just left the latest version. So this was the second newest part of the pyramid. And right on the grounds, we see kind of what this temple was built for. And so this was a religious temple. They had many gods, and this was one of them in the story of this temple. You can see its body parts. So there's a body and legs and arms laying around. Well, this is Choyo Shashki was the god, and they lost a kind of war with another god and thrown down at the bottom of this pyramid, this temple, and it broke apart. So you can kind of think of it like Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Didn't work out for him. So that's as we go into the another layer, look how steep these stairs were. And so in this version, so if we look at these stairs over here, so from the model, the computer model, if you remember, there were 2 staircases. And you would only be allowed to go up this temple if you were a priest or someone very high up in the society, like one of the kings. Or if you weren't one of those people, you would not want to go up this temple, because the Aztecs did practice both human and animal sacrificing. So they would perform that on this temple. This is kind of unique. This has nothing to do with the Aztecs, but this has to do with current culture. I found these all over the place in Mexico. And so these are points of reunion. So they paint these on the ground, all in public places. And what these are for, say if you go somewhere with your family, or you're on a school field trip, for example, and you lose your teacher or you lose your mom and dad, you come to one of these points of reunion. So you come here, and this is where you'll meet. So yeah, if you ever get lost in Mexico in a public place, go find one of these areas on the ground, and your party will come looking for you. Remember the story I told you that they were building a water line in the city? So a couple hundred years went by after the Spanish kind of built on top of this, and people forgot all about this temple, all about this pyramid. And they were building newer city construction and putting in water lines, and that's how they rediscovered this temple, which is kind of neat how that came about. And this is the original pyramid. So this was the original section. We'll walk up the stairs. You'll get to look at it from the top there. So again, at the top of the pyramid, so the last pyramid that the Spanish would have seen when they first came here is long gone. That would have been above our heads right now. But right here, the original, the first pyramid, you can see at the top of the first one, this is where they would perform any sacrifices. Any animal or human sacrifices would be right up there at the top. All right, and this is just a quick tour of the Great Temple from the Aztecs. Okay, so the rest of our virtual field trip today is going to focus on Mexican food, Mexican arts, religion, and sports. And this is a Choose Your Own Adventure show, so we're going to use Kahoot today for you to choose your own adventure. So go ahead and grab your devices if you're playing along, and we're going to start off with playing a fact or fiction, and jumping into choosing our next thing we're going to talk about. So again, 709-0676. If you're not logged in yet, go to kahoot.it on any browser to log in. We're going to go ahead and start. Okay. Remember, you only have 10 seconds to choose your answer. Fact or fiction, baseball is the most popular sport in Mexico. All right, that is fiction. So football, no, not American football, all you Tom Brady fans out there. It is, or you guys up in Wisconsin, Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers fans, this is football to the rest of the world is soccer. So what most of you call soccer, the rest of the world calls football. Football is the most popular sport in Mexico. Okay, gang, choose what you want to talk about next. Red food, blue arts, yellow sports, or green religion? All right, you have chosen food, and that is a great choice, explorers. And to talk about food in Mexico, you cannot start any discussion without first talking about corn. So corn. Corn is a huge part of the Mexican cuisine. Here's the cool thing about corn, guys. Most of you in the US, if that's indeed where you're watching from, or Canada, you probably only see at most 3 varieties of corn in your grocery stores. Generally, it's some version of sweet corn, like a yellow or white sweet corn, or sometimes a mix of both. Well, in Mexico, they have over 60 varieties of heirloom corn. And so lots and lots of different kinds of corn. Why is it so important? Because we have, remember that big word I said earlier, Mesoamerica. Can you guys say Mesoamerica? All right, so Mesoamerica, all that means is it's the central southern Mexico that was also down into Central America down here. So it's this area of the world. This was pre-Europeans. So Mesoamerica means Central America before 1500, basically, and 1500 and before. And so this area of the world, Mesoamerica, had very large civilizations like the Mayans, the Aztecs that we've been talking about today, the Zapotecs. Well, corn was first domesticated by the people in this area of the world. So Mesoamericans domesticated corn. What that means is they took it from a wild plant and made it into a plant you can plant in your gardens. And from there, it spread to South America. It spread up into North America. So when the Pilgrims came over here and Squanto taught from the Wampanoag taught the Pilgrims how to put fish in the ground to grow their corn, well, originally they could have thanked the Mesoamericans for that corn even before that. So very, very important food that is all over the world today. Other foods that we have to thank for Mesoamericans for, avocados, the chile. Raise your hand if you like spicy food. All right, if you like spicy food, chile, thank you, Mesoamericans. We also have hominy. So this is a type of corn over here to the left. And we also have chocolate. Who likes chocolate? Yeah, a lot of you guys also comes from this part of the world. So we have a lot to thank Mesoamerica for the foods that we eat today, beans. And so here, one of the cool ways that the Aztecs developed their gardens is they built something called chinapas. So chinapas are floating gardens. Remember Tenochtitlan, so that's old Mexico City. Tenochtitlan was built on top of a lake, was an island on a lake. And around that island, they built these floating gardens, again, called chinapas. And in fact, when the Spanish came here, their leader was called Cortez. He looked at it and he said that he called it the New Venice, And that's because all of these canals that flowed in between the chinapas. So it must have been an amazing sight to see all of these growing food floating in the lake. Very unique way of growing food. Let's look at some current modern day food. So everyone loves tacos. Now they're going to be a little bit different than tacos. If you like Taco Bell, for example, some people would argue that's not even Mexican food. So first off, there's corn tortillas. So flour tortillas are not nearly as common. You can find them. Also, they're generally served, at least in central Mexico, I found, on a double tortilla, not just one. This one was kind of cool because it had French fries on it. I just wanted to try that out. This is called pozole, which is like a stew, very popular in central Mexico traditionally. It's made with that hominy corn, very hearty stew. I really like it. I got to visit a middle school, and they in Mexico City, and they made me a lot of delicious food. So these are tamales, tacos, and this is mole. So mole is made with also popular in central and south central Mexico, and it's made with 7 different kinds of peppers. So 7 different kinds of chiles makes the mole sauce. This is called black mole, which is actually has chocolate in it. I'm not a big chocolate fan. Sorry for everyone that said they like chocolate. And coming over in Mrs. Thompson's classroom says they like chocolate as well. Well, I'm not a huge fan. So this is if you watched our pre-show video, you know, okay, there were the Aztecs that were here. We know the Spanish came. So those are 2 major cultures that influence current day Mexican culture in central Mexico. But there's one other player too, because Spain would trade a lot with the Middle East. So there was lots of Middle Eastern people and business people in Mexico City. And they brought a lot of their food, a lot of their art and customs with them. This is one that's here today. They're called al pastor tacos. So al pastor means shepherd. So originally this is lamb meat. So this may look familiar to if you've ever been down the streets of New York City, or you ever been to the Middle Eastern, seen Middle Eastern street food. Generally it's a lamb on that vertical spit, but this is actually pork, because the people in Mexico like pork more than lamb. But they kept the name al pastor tacos. And so it's marinated pork, and then they put all the toppings on them. And one of the unique toppings they put on al pastor tacos is right here, pineapple. All right, I thought that was really weird, but it is, oh man, it is delicious. It's good, guys. You got to try an al pastor taco if you've never had one. All right, and we like to show some of the U.S. influence stuff that we find around the world too. So we found a Domino's. Anyone like Domino's pizza? We also found Krispy Kreme, Chili's, Church's Chicken, McDonald's. Of course, you can't go anywhere in the world without finding a McDonald's. Hey, what is that right there? Is that hamburger cost $30?
30 pesos.
Right. So whoever said pesos, you are correct. So, right. So they use pesos in Mexico, not US dollars. Other things we found as far as like US based stuff, Oreos, Fruit Loops were some stuff that we found in the cereal aisle. And then candy. Everyone loves looking at the candy aisle. Of course, there's lots of Mexican candy. This was just showing some of the U.S. candy in the candy aisle that I found. M&M's, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, and all kinds of chewing gum as well. And again, those high prices that you see are in pesos, not in U.S. dollars. Yes, Hall's cough drops does not cost $23. If you want to know how much pesos are worth, today they are coming in at about $1 US equals about 18 pesos. About 18 pesos. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start jumping into some of your questions. So get those sent in. Mrs. Thompson's classroom is saying they love pizza, as do I. Okay, let's see. What is it called? The floating gardens again, chinapas. And how much is a peso worth? So $1 US is worth 18.78 pesos when I looked it up right before the show. So that changes a little bit throughout the day. It was 20 pesos when I was there, $1. So it changes from day to day as well. All right, let's go over to Wisconsin. Do you guys have a question for us?
What is the most famous mountain in Mexico?
I'm just gonna have to say I don't know. The most famous mountain? Yeah, I don't know what the most famous mountain is. I can tell you the mountains that I went to see. I went to a mountain at oh gosh, I can't even think of it right now. San Piedra mountain, which was where the monarch butterflies overwinter in. So the monarch butterflies that are really cool is near Mexico City, about an hour away, and that was really awesome. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and jump into another section. What is your famous Mexican food? This is Chase's classroom wants to know, or my favorite. What is my favorite? I would have to say it was a tie between the al pastor taco that I showed you was really delicious, and the pozole, so that stew. And that stew has a big background. So I met someone from Mexico City, a local, that was telling me way back in so early Aztec days, even before then in Mesoamerica, some people even believe that original pozole was made between after war. It was like a war stew, and there's old stories that there may or may not have been some human parts thrown in there of the loser. So I don't know. That's just what I was told. They could have been pulling my leg, but it's a good research topic. So we like that as explorers, go research what we find. All right, so we're going to go ahead and find out what our next topic is going to be on today's Geo Show, and you get to choose that topic. So go ahead and grab your Kahoot devices. And first, we have a fact or fiction question, though. Fact or fiction, Cinco de Mayo is Mexico's Independence Day. Cinco de Mayo is Mexico's Independence Day. We just had Cinco de Mayo. Was it Mexico's Independence Day? All right, that one is in fact fiction. So Cinco de Mayo is not Mexico's Independence Day. Cinco de Mayo is a celebration of a battle where Mexico won against a more powerful French army. So it is not the Independence Day, though. For some reason, Cinco de Mayo has become more popular in the U.S. than any other Mexican holiday, but is not the most popular holiday in Mexico. So if you celebrate it next year, at least celebrate it correctly. It is not Mexico's Independence Day. All right, so choose your own adventure, explorers. What do you want to talk about next? Do not choose food. All right, do you want to talk about blue art, yellow sports, or green religion? All right, sports you want, so sports you get, explorers. So we got to experience 2 sporting events while in Mexico City, and I'm going to share both of those with you today. Those sporting events one was a football game, or football, and most of you will know that as soccer. And if you go to a soccer game, we went to a Pumas game, so you can see some of their gear right here, man selling their gear. There's the Puma right there, or on the shirt. So that really goes into some of the animals that are found in Mexico as well, so the Puma. And of course, you can get candy and snacks and all sorts of good stuff. So let's go there and watch a football game. So the Pumas, the home team, were in the gold jerseys. If we pause right on these two young gentlemen, we can see right on their backs of their Puma jerseys, it says Telco. So Telco is a Mexican company that sponsors the Pumas, and they are like Verizon or AT&T or Sprint. So they are a phone company, and if you want a cell phone, your smartphone, you'll go to a Telco store. See, lots of the fans bring their own instruments to play. There's lots of choreographed chants. All right, so as we see some of our concession sellers walking up, selling gifts, and also there's a bag of popcorn. And again, that's not $30, it's 30 pesos that they use. And then what's also interesting that we've witnessed at the game was all these policemen in riot gear, so shields and body armor. And the reason for that is because soccer is such a popular sport around the world. Sometimes people get a little out of hand or a lot out of hand at some of these football games, and so they're usually on call for that. So we have someone over in Mrs. Thompson's classroom has a dog named Puma. That's awesome. And that's kind of funny because a Puma's a cat, so you named your dog Cat. That's funny. All right, we also went to a lucha libre wrestling match. So lucha libre is Mexican wrestling. It's a little bit different than the WWE in the U.S. One is most of the luchadors or the wrestlers start off wearing a mask. Now, if that mask ever gets taken off during a wrestling match, you're not allowed to put it back on. The most famous of the luchadors is El Santo, which means the saint, and he had a white mask and actually was huge in movies and whatnot. We go to a lucha libre match. First thing is they have grand entrances, just like the WWE. One thing you may notice is different is there's lots of 3-on-3 matches, so you don't have to tag each other in if you're fans of the WWE. And so they just kind of go in and out whenever they want to. The other thing is it's very acrobatic. Just watch this.
Oh! He's very good. Oh! He's very good. They're entertained.
All right, and this is an interesting cultural thing about lucha libre and that's afterwards. This doesn't happen all the time anymore, but they're actually picking up money off the ring, off the mat, and that's because it's the winning team. And afterwards, if people were entertained and they really enjoyed the wrestling match, they'll give them a tip. So they'll throw money up on the stage. And that goes back to the days when it wasn't a popular big money maker, and they really didn't get paid a lot. So that's how they used to get paid, was the people that were watched would throw money up on. And outside, just like any other sporting event, you can buy shirts and souvenirs about your favorite wrestlers. And of course, it couldn't be Lucha Libre without getting your favorite wrestler's mask. So you can get the mask over here as well. Although I do recommend, I noticed you can get them from other places in the city. So if you ever go to Mexico City and you want to go to a Lucha Libre, they're cheaper other places of the city. If you buy them right out in front after the match, they're going to be more expensive. All right, that's a brief overview of the sports that are found in Mexico, or the other sports that are found. The national sport is the rodeo, interestingly enough. And there's also baseball. We saw billboards with American football players on it. If you notice, if you're a fan of the NFL, they started playing games in Mexico City for a few years now. And so it's becoming more popular in central Mexico, but definitely nothing compares to football or soccer for sure. Okay, some of our questions coming in. Why is it called Domino's and not something else in Spanish? Well, I think it's because it's just like if McDonald's goes somewhere else, it's going to be called McDonald's because they're the name, they call it that. If they started their own, if they started their own Domino's and they just called it, I mean, it's like saying pizza. Maybe you could say pizza in Spanish, but not the English version. Does that make sense? It's a name of a business. It's the name of a business. So you're not going to change the name of Walmart even if you build a Walmart in Mexico. And I'm trying to think. I'm just eluded right now of what is. Okay, here's a good one. Nestle. No, not Nestle. I'm drawing a blank. So there's businesses that's in the U.S. IKEA. I think IKEA is a European company, if I'm correct. So that's a name that's come into the U.S. and it's IKEA. So yeah. So I mean, there's other names like that. You may see Italian restaurants around your neighborhood that has an Italian name, for example. So yeah. Okay, so we're going to, that's most of our questions that we see so far. So we're going to go ahead and jump into another one, getting short on time here. So we'll let you choose your next adventure, explorers. So go ahead and grab your Kahoot devices once again, and fact or fiction. Most people in Mexico are Catholic. Fact or fiction? All right, that is fact. About 81% of the people in Mexico are Catholic. It used to be higher. It used to be around 90%. Okay, let's jump into our next section. What do you want to learn about next? Do you want to learn about blue art or green religion? All right. Oh, that was a close one. And we're going to talk next about art in Mexico. To do that, we visited the Museum of Modern Art called the MAP, Museum of Popular Modern Arts in Mexico City. And you guys are going to get to go there right now. So this is a converted old fire station in Mexico City. That's why it's so open and big. It was a big old government building, which is really cool. It makes a really, really nice lobby area that we're in right now. You see lots of kites that are displayed because they had a kite exhibit, which was really cool. The first exhibit room that you walk into in the museum has this large map of Mexico, and it reflects the type of landforms and the type of ecosystems that you find throughout Mexico. So if you look in the northern part of Mexico, you see lots of desert. So you get those desert colors, those browns, those yellows. When you get into southern Mexico, it changes slowly, but when you get into southern Mexico, you get those really dark greens from the rainforest. And as we zoom in closer to the map, this is reflected in traditional art in Mexico. So the colors of the artwork comes from the colors that the people found in nature. So here we're looking at some examples from each region. This is from northern Mexico, so we see those browns and yellows. Central Mexico is starting to get more colorful, all the way down to southern Mexico, which is where we get those really bright colors that are coming from nature, coming from the rainforest, the tropical areas. Animals were also used as inspiration throughout throughout the art world and artists in Mexico. So you see lots of artwork depicting animals, and this is more modern art. So this started in the 1930s. These are called alejibres. Can everyone say alejibres? All right. So a cartoonist in the 1930s started this type of art, and he called them alejibres, and it's fantastic art, these mythical creatures. That's where he saw in his dream world, and he started drawing, and it's very popular in Mexico today. In fact, we were there just shortly after an Alijibre parade, so they made very large floats with Alijibres. If you guys are interested in making your own Alijibres, I put, here's a cool unicorn / dragon. I put some resources in your lesson plans, teachers, that link to you can either color or make your own Alijibres. So these ones light up. So this is some video footage from that parade. This is really cool. This comes from the state of Hachul. So again, they have states in Mexico. And these are little individual beads. So each one of these little colors are little beads that are glued onto these masks. And you can do this with anything, Hachul beadwork. So this is a car. This was a Volkswagen Beetle that was covered entirely with these little beads. Then we just learned that 81% of the country is Catholic. And so we see that reflected in the artwork as well. So these are called Judas puppets. So these are popular to make around the time of Easter. And so you make them. And if you're familiar with the story of Jesus and you know who Judas is, it was the person who turned Jesus into the Romans. And when they took him into custody. And so Judas is known as not a good person. And so they blew him up. You make Judas puppets, and these are firecrackers, homemade firecrackers, and you blow them up in the streets. And during right before Easter, a very popular activity to do. And then the Virgin Mary, Jesus's mother, reflected in the artwork as well. Again, when you walk throughout the museum, I really love the way it's designed. Every exhibit you see, at least the traditional art, is segregated for the northern region, the desert colors, the central region, and the southern region near the tropical areas. So you really see the difference in the colors as you walk throughout the museum. And again, those big alejibres, really fantastic creatures. And we also have examples of another very big holiday in Mexico, which is the Day of the Dead. So if you've ever heard of the Day of the Dead before, so Dia de los Muertos, and so it's on November 1st and 2nd every year. Traditionally, the Mexican people, the indigenous people in Mesoamerica, believe that their ancestors returned to the earth, and they could visit with their ancestors and celebrate. So one of the popular forms of artwork is to make these skeletons of your ancestors that have passed away. And so it just shows, a lot of people get this confused with Halloween sometimes because it's right after Halloween, and in their skeletons, but it's not Halloween. It's Day of the Dead celebration. And so November 1st, the children of your ancestors return. November 2nd, the adults. And you usually depict these, or you make these skeletons doing something that person liked to do in their life. So maybe they were a musician, maybe they were an actor, maybe they were children that liked to play with their friends, or maybe they were a couple strolling in the park. Some more examples of really unique kind of Day of the Dead art as well. And some of the other cultures that have influenced their artwork as well. Again, the Spanish brought pottery, Middle East in the central part of Mexico through trade, brought tile work. that you can see on some of the buildings in Mexico City, the tiled buildings. And then down in Oaxaca in southern Mexico, very big for their textile work. So very, very, very beautiful textiles. And this is not from the Aztec, but this is from a different Mesoamerican group called the Zapotec. And this is one of their buildings that have still survives today. And if we go look at the sides of the Zapotec building, we can see the actual design that has been taken right from the Zapotecs. So if we align those up side by side, we can actually see them. They actually match up perfectly there. And much of the textile work is made from natural dyes. So you can make those from flowers, different kinds of flowers. And also that dark red color we were talking about earlier in our virtual field trip, that was made from these really cool, or I don't know if they're cool, but it's cool how they do it. But these parasites that grow on cacti. And when we zoom in here, it's not the cactus itself, but it's a parasite that grows on the cactus leaf. And when you take them out, this is what they look like. You can crush them up into a dark red powder. And when you mix it with water, it turns this really beautiful dark red. And the way that you mix that red color, you can make different versions of reds with it. All right, so that is a brief overview of Mexican art. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into, we're getting very late here, so we're going to jump directly into our GEO quiz. If you have time to stay after that, and we'll jump to any other questions we did not answer, feel free to stick around for that. But we're going to go ahead and play, so if you have to run, you may do so afterwards. You can always run whenever you want to. Again, questions from here on out will be worth points, so make sure you answer quickly and correctly, explorers, quickly and correctly. The quicker you answer correctly, the more points you are awarded. How well were you paying attention? We're going to start in 3, 2, good luck. What food was domesticated in southern Mexico? Was it red apples, blue wheat, yellow corn, or green oranges? All right, it was corn. And Mac Jeep #1 takes the lead right off the get-go. Which indigenous people lived in Mexico City before the Spanish arrived? Was it red, the Mayans, blue, the Aztecs, yellow, the Apaches, or green, the Zapotecs? All right, it was the Aztecs. Next question. What is the most popular sport in Mexico today? Is it red football, blue baseball, yellow boxing, or green lucha libre? All right, it is football. Sydney Panda 2 is in the lead, but not very much. Prideful Bear 23 right behind. What is the most practiced religion in Mexico? Is it Buddhism, Judaism, yellow Islam, or green Christianity, the Catholic form of Christianity? All right, it is the Catholic religion. Prideful Bear 23, jump Sydney, got to be quicker. All right, traditionally, where's the most colorful Mexican art from? Traditionally, is it the northern region, the central region, or yellow, the southern region? Ooh, we had some split there. If you remember, it's from the southern region where the tropical areas are. So today's winner is Prideful Bear 23. Congratulations, Prideful Bear 23. If you are Prideful Bear 23's teacher, make sure you email me, brandon@learnaroundtheworld.com, your school address, so I can send Prideful Bear 23 a postcard from me, GOB, from the Learn Around the World Studios. Don't go anywhere. If you're here live with us and you have time to stick around and keep asking questions, I would love to continue answering them. But for everyone else and watching in the future, or if you have to run, thanks for hanging out on today's all-free virtual field trip brought to you by flatclass.club. Teachers, check out the all-new Flat Class podcasts to find out how to tear down your classroom walls and bring the world into your classroom. I'm GOB. You've been watching the Geo Show. In fact, this is the last Geo Show of the 2016-17 school year. And until next school year, explorers, have a great summer. I'm GOB, and keep exploring.